people need to feel, how would people come to feel connected with these movements? And how would we go from being communities to community and from movements to movement? Last year we had a meeting with over 50 women in a huge circle making decisions for a march. And it's difficult, but it is amazing and empowering. There's a lot of strategy that goes into the organizing done in this building, and thinking about what's going on in our schools and how these students are affected by marching, thinking about what's going on at homes all over the city, and how, you know, the marching ordinance is a queer issue, and how all these issues connect, and how certain people should be at the table and certain people should be here making these decisions. 2 years ago, we had the largest Women's Day March. For the work, like I said, we had over 50 women planning that march. And we had over 1,000 women 2 years ago marching in the streets. And then last year, it was even bigger than the year before.
You can't ask people to do something for their next door neighbors if they don't love themselves, right? So ground them first, then they're able to look across the street and take care of their neighbors. They'll look across the city, want to take care of other people in the community, be able to go across the border and across to the other side where we have wars. So make those connections.
Mom took me in, and I loved it, and it helped me find courage and respect, and now I can walk with my head up. I was belittled for a lot of years, and now I feel very strong. At the Mujeres at the casita, because it is a little house, it's very homely. We have, at the most, we have 15 women. And it's just a wonderful program, and I was very glad that my mom got involved. She was very sad because my brother died of AIDS, and she looks at it every day. We closed the shop. She was crying every day, and when she went there, she was able to smile. And so when she took me in, we both now smile together. So it's really touching to me. And I love the program, and Esperanza has really given us an opportunity, and I get the best of it. I get to work with Mom side by side every day.
Being raised in the West Side, and I married a military man, so I left in my youth, came back, and lost track. I didn't lose my culture, but I lost my West Side. Came back, and so many years later, my granddaughter got involved in Chicano studies and talked me into going to La Casita, and it was magic. I mean, it was like we meet and tell stories about our youth.
My mother started talking about things that she'd always kept in her heart and hadn't talked about, and it was a very moving moment for us because it was like all this denial constantly. And you know, sometimes it would surface like, I don't know if you've taken tours of San Antonio, but San Antonio loves its history. It loves to tell you about the Alamo and the heroes and the hotels and, you know, Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders. And one of the things that we did sometimes is on Mother's Day, we make reservations and go to one of the fancy hotels for brunch. And the first time we did it, my mother started sobbing in the women's room. And my mother isn't much of a crier. And you know, it's like, Mom, why are you crying? And she said, because I could have never brought my mother here. And so when they're telling you those histories, it's a certain kind of history. It's like Graciela says, these are not the histories that's recorded, that when they tell you about the glorious St. Anthony Hotel, they don't tell you that women of color or anybody of color could go in there other than in the side entrance as a domestic.
Those are the kind of stories that we tell and that they record for future, you know, for our future, for our kids and our grandkids. And there are so many people my age and older, and like my granddaughter attends, that it's a wonderful thing that they do.
One of the key concepts was the cafecitos, where we
we go and you invite people over from your neighborhood, like your neighbors, your friends, and they come to your house and you sit around, you have coffee and pan de dulce, and just talk about, you know, the issue of free speech and the importance of it. You know, all the work that we do is not, you know, able to happen if we're not able to have free speech. So the cafecitos, they worked really well. I did one at my own house, and those people still today, to this day, are still asking me. I did it in January of 2008, last year, and people to this day are still asking me about, you know, it's kept them interested in the lawsuit and keep them, you know, their interest alive in what's going on with the lawsuit. And I think that, you know, people having a vested interest in it, you know, comes out of things like cafecitos where you have real exchanges of ideas. And so we've been doing that. We've been doing a lot of phone calls. We're just keeping people updated on what's going on and being able to draw people in to do different kind of events where we're tabling, where we're doing street corner actions, just getting out there and talking to people and letting people know, like, because once they find out what's really going on with the city, then they feel like, well, they feel compelled to do something, and it's just been a real overall positive experience reaching out to people with the Free Speech Coalition and Los Calles No Se Callen, the streets will not be silenced.
We're talking about building a movement, and that's not organizations, that's people. That's hundreds of thousands and millions of people, right? A movement. This is our community, and we have to be able to explain and understand ourselves within community and connect with people. And that, I guess I want to say that as our strategy as a whole has to include the community as a whole, young, old, straight, queer, black, brown, Asian, Arab, indigenous, immigrant, men, women, everybody. And that we've got to think back to a time before we saw ourselves as part of a movement and figure out how to connect with people, how to connect with huge groups of unorganized people.